It's deeply intentional. When you develop a calm mind, you stop getting pulled by every emotion, every fear, every insecurity. You stop being a puppet of your environment, and you start being the author of your experience. Here's the truth. Fear loves chaos. Anxiety thrives in uncertainty. And the more noise there is in your head, the easier it is for fear to control you. But when you slow down, when you breathe, when you create stillness, something incredible happens. Clarity shows up. And clarity changes everything. With clarity, you can make decisions. With clarity, you can see what matters and what doesn't. You stop reacting and you start responding. We often think fear is something we need to fight. But fear isn't the enemy. It's just a signal, a message. And like any message, it can be heard, understood, and released. But that only happens when your mind is still enough to listen. That only happens when you create enough calm to hear your own truth through the noise of the world. So how do you get there? You build systems. You build structure. Not for control, but for freedom. A calm mind doesn't mean you sit still all day. It means you have rituals that ground you. It means you protect your energy, your focus, your peace. You say no more often. You prioritize presence. You don't let every distraction steal your attention. Living without fear and anxiety isn't about avoiding problems. It's about learning how to meet them with strength. It's about becoming the kind of person who walks into chaos and brings calm with them. Not because the world is calm, but because they are. That's real power. That's leadership. And that's a life worth building. You can't wait for the world to calm down. You have to become the calm. You have to become the eye of the storm. Because once your mind is calm, fear loses its grip. Anxiety can't manipulate you. And suddenly, you're free. Free to lead, free to love, free to live. That's the power of a calm mind. Clarity doesn't come in a moment of panic. It doesn't arrive when your heart is racing, your mind is spinning, and your thoughts are scattered in 100 directions. Clarity comes after the noise, after the storm, after you've chosen to stop fighting everything around you just long enough to hear what's happening within you. Most of us live in a state of constant motion, mentally, emotionally, physically. We wake up and immediately reach for our phones. We scroll, compare, consume. From the moment our eyes open to the moment they close, we're reacting to emails, to traffic, to people's opinions, to expectations. And we wonder why we feel so lost, so overwhelmed, so unsure of what we want or where we're going. Here's what's really happening. Chaos is clouding our vision. When your mind is loud, it's impossible to see clearly. And when you can't see clearly, every step feels uncertain. You hesitate, you second guess, you question yourself, not because you're weak, but because your mind is crowded. You can't find direction in disorder. You can't find truth in noise. You can't find yourself when you're buried beneath everything else. Clarity isn't something you stumble into. It's something you make space for. It comes when you clear out the mental clutter, the overthinking, the worrying, the opinions of others that don't belong to you. It comes when you stop running from your thoughts and start listening to them. Not to get overwhelmed, but to understand. You can't clean up a room without stepping into it. The same goes for your mind. The moment you decide to slow down, to be still, you take back control. Stillness isn't weakness, it's discipline. It's strength under control. It's saying, I don't need to match the chaos around me. It's choosing peace on purpose. That choice is where clarity begins, because when the dust settles, you start to see the path. The noise clears, and the truth stands out. The things you thought were urgent, they're not. The things you were chasing, maybe they were never yours to chase. The things you kept avoiding, maybe that's where your next breakthrough is waiting. Clarity is not about knowing everything. It's about knowing enough to take the next step. It's about knowing what matters most and giving it your full attention. Chaos wants you to believe you have to do it all, fix it all, carry it all right now. But clarity reminds you, not everything is yours to carry. Not everything deserves your energy. Not everything needs an immediate answer. When you calm your mind, your priorities reorder themselves. The real becomes obvious. The fake becomes exhausting. The truth gets louder and fear gets quieter. You begin to operate from alignment, not anxiety. From confidence, not confusion. A calm mind doesn't mean a life without pressure. It means pressure doesn't own you. It means you've trained yourself to see through the storm. You've built enough inner quiet to hear your instincts. And in that space, that silence, you find something rare. Direction. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, confused, or unsure of what comes next, don't rush. Don't force clarity to come. Create the conditions for it. Step back, breathe, journal, reflect, go for a walk without your phone. Give your mind the space it needs to think clearly, because clarity is not found in the noise. It's waiting patiently on the other side of it. Anxiety has a way of creeping in when we feel like we don't have answers. It shows up when we're unsure, when the future feels unpredictable, when the ground beneath us feels unstable. It feeds off uncertainty. The less we know, the more our minds race, filling in the blanks with worst-case scenarios. That's what anxiety does. It builds stories in a space where clarity hasn't been created yet. The unknown is a fertile ground for fear. When we can't see what's ahead, our minds assume the worst, not because we're weak, but because our brains are wired to protect us. It's a survival mechanism. But in today's world, we're not running from wild animals. We're running from decisions, expectations, and the endless pressure to have everything figured out. That's why one of the most powerful things you can do is bring structure into your life. Not rigid control, but intentional systems that reduce the number of unknowns. Because when you build the known, you create safety. And safety is the antidote to anxiety. Think about your daily life. Most anxiety doesn't come from massive events. It comes from uncertainty in the little things. Not knowing how your day will go. Not knowing what someone meant by a vague text. Not knowing if you're doing enough. These moments stack up. They create a background noise of worry. But when you take the time to define your routines, your values, your goals, you quiet that noise. Creating the known doesn't mean predicting the future. It means taking control of what you can control. It means creating rituals in the morning that ground you. It means planning your week so your mind has fewer questions to spin over. It means defining what success means to you so you stop chasing someone else's definition. And even more importantly, it means deciding how you will respond when things go wrong. Because things will go wrong. That's life. But when you've taken the time to know yourself, to know your principles, your tools, your anchors, the unknown becomes less terrifying. Because you're not stepping into it blindly. You're bringing certainty with you. There's a reason people journal, meditate, pray, exercise. Not because these things make life perfect, but because they build the known. They create familiarity. They give your nervous system a rhythm to fall back on when everything feels chaotic. That rhythm becomes a signal to your body and your brain. I'm safe, I'm grounded, I know what I'm doing. Anxiety can't thrive in that space. It may still knock on your door, but it won't move in. Because you've built a foundation it can't shake. The goal isn't to eliminate all uncertainty. That's impossible. The goal is to shrink the size of the unknown. To create enough clarity, structure, and self-trust that the unknown doesn't overwhelm you anymore. You can't plan for everything, but you can prepare for anything. And preparation isn't just about action. It's about mindset. It's about knowing who you are, what matters to you, and how you'll handle life when it doesn't go as planned. That's how you reclaim your power. You stopped giving all your energy to the things you can't predict and start investing it in the things you can build. Your habits, your mindset, your boundaries, your support system, those are the knowns. And when they're strong, you'll walk into the unknown with steadiness, not fear. Anxiety isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a subtle hum in the background, a constant unease that we can't quite explain. We feel it when we wake up and don't know what the day holds. We feel it when we're waiting for a reply, when the future feels blurry, when we're unsure of what's next. That's because anxiety thrives in the unknown. It feeds off uncertainty. It expands in the absence of clarity. And in today's world, there's no shortage of unknowns. We're bombarded with constant change in our jobs, our relationships, the economy, even the news cycle. It's overwhelming. When we feel like we can't predict what's coming, our minds instinctively start preparing for the worst. It's how the brain tries to protect us. It's not always logical, but it is deeply human. This is why creating structure in your life is so powerful, not because you need to control everything, but because structure gives your mind a sense of safety. It gives you a place to stand. When you build the known, you give yourself something solid. In a world that often feels shaky, you create reference points that remind you who you are, what matters, and what you can depend on. It starts small, knowing how your morning will begin, knowing what helps you reset when you feel overwhelmed, having go-to routines, healthy boundaries, and clear goals. These aren't just productivity hacks. They're lifelines. They reduce the mental clutter and calm the nervous system. They turn the unknown into something manageable. The more you build the known, the more confident you become in navigating the unknown. Because let's be honest, you can't eliminate uncertainty. Life will always bring surprises, challenges, and things you didn't see coming. But when you've taken time to define the parts of your world that you can influence, you don't feel as helpless. You know what values guide your choices. You know what kind of people you want in your circle. You know how to ground yourself when your emotions start to spiral. And that kind of self-acknowledge creates a powerful internal anchor. Without that anchor, everything feels like a threat. A delay feels like rejection. A bad day feels like the beginning of failure. A small conflict feels like the end of a relationship. And when you have stability inside, when you've built habits and beliefs that support you, your anxiety no longer gets to dictate the story. Even in chaos, you can choose calm. Even in the face of uncertainty, you can choose clarity. It's not about pretending everything's fine. It's about reminding yourself that you are not powerless. You always have the ability to shape your internal world, even when your external world feels unpredictable. So the question becomes, what are you building? Are you waiting for peace to arrive, or are you creating it? Are you hoping for certainty, or are you designing your own rhythms and rituals to feel secure? Peace doesn't just show up. It's cultivated. One decision, one routine, one intentional habit at a time. You take the swirling unknowns of life and you carve out space for what you know to be true about yourself, about your values, about what truly matters. When you do that, anxiety loses its grip. It may still show up, but it won't control you, because you've created a world, even if it's just a few solid pieces, that reminds you you're not lost. You're not helpless. You're building something real, something strong. We live in a world that glorifies movement. The faster you move, the more productive you seem. The more you do, the more praise you get. Rest is often labeled as weakness. Slowing down is seen as falling behind. But here's the truth most people miss. Stillness is not laziness. It's a strategic pause. And sometimes that pause is the smartest move you can make. Stillness isn't about doing nothing. It's about doing the right thing, which in certain moments is choosing not to act until clarity returns. When you're constantly moving, constantly reacting, constantly pushing, you lose the ability to reflect. And reflection is where wisdom comes from. It's where growth happens. It's where direction reveals itself. We're not machines. We're not designed to be on all the time. Even the best athletes know the importance of recovery. Even the sharpest minds understand the value of stepping back. Pausing doesn't mean you're giving up. It means you're preserving your energy, sharpening your vision, and preparing for what's next. Some of your most important decisions won't come from a state of hustle. They'll come in moments of stillness, when your heart catches up with your mind. And when you finally have enough space to hear your own thoughts, that space is where real alignment happens. The challenge is, stillness can feel uncomfortable. When you've been running on adrenaline, when you've been measuring your worth by how busy you are, being still can feel like failure. It can trigger guilt. It can make you feel like you're wasting time. But that discomfort is often a sign that you need the pause more than ever. Because what's the point of moving fast if you're going in the wrong direction? What's the point of achieving goals that aren't aligned with your truth? Stillness is how you check in. It's how you get honest with yourself. It's how you stop reacting and start responding from a place of strength instead of stress. In moments of stillness, you reclaim control. You're no longer letting the world dictate your next move. You're choosing it intentionally, deliberately, and that's what makes it strategic. Stillness creates the mental space for strategy, the emotional space for peace, and the physical space for renewal. Some of the most successful people in the world schedule time for stillness. They journal, they meditate, they go on walks without distractions. Not because they're avoiding life, but because they're preparing to meet it fully. They understand that clarity isn't something you stumble into while sprinting. It arrives when you give yourself permission to pause. We tend to believe we have to earn rest, that we only deserve it after we've pushed ourselves to exhaustion. But what if rest wasn't a reward, but a requirement? What if stillness wasn't a luxury, but a leadership tool? What if the quiet moments were the exact ones that position you to come back stronger, clearer, and more grounded? There's power in knowing when to move and when to wait, when to push and when to pause. And the pause isn't passive, it's a reset. It's where you reconnect with your values, realign with your purpose, and recharge your energy. It's what allows you to return to the world not just with momentum, but with meaning. So don't mistake stillness for weakness. Don't confuse rest with laziness. Stillness is intentional. It's thoughtful. It's the brave decision to stop chasing everything for a moment and instead to sit with what matters most. And in that quiet, you often find the answers you were rushing around trying to find. Stillness is strength in disguise. Fear is one of the oldest instincts we have. It's wired into our biology, meant to protect us from real danger. But in today's world, fear doesn't always come from lions in the wild. It comes from the stories we tell ourselves. Stories about what might happen, what could go wrong, what we're not good enough for. Fear is no longer just a response to what is. It's a reaction to what we imagine. And that's the truth most people overlook. Fear is a story. It's a narrative your mind creates in moments of uncertainty, and like any story, it has characters, conflict, and often a worst-case ending. But here's the thing. Just because your mind tells the story doesn't mean it's true. Just because it feels real doesn't mean it's reality. The story of fear is just one version. And you, the one experiencing it, you're also the one holding the pen. Most people live as if fear is the author, as if the script has already been written and they're just reading the lines. They let fear make their decisions, guide their relationships, shape their goals. They stop before they start. They settle for less. They shrink their lives down to what feels safe, not because they want to, but because the story of fear is so convincing. But here's what changes everything, realizing you can rewrite it. You don't have to believe everything fear tells you. You can question it. You can pause, take a breath, and ask, is this fear protecting me or limiting me? Because sometimes the thing you're afraid of isn't a threat. It's a threshold, a doorway to something better, and the only way through is to challenge the story that says you can't. Fear often starts its story with what if? What if I fail? What if I'm not good enough? What if I lose everything? But courage rewrites those lines with new questions. What if I succeed? What if I'm more capable than I think? What if this leads to something greater than I ever imagined? That's the power of holding the pen. You get to choose the narrative you live by. You get to edit the script. You get to decide what kind of character you are, the one who backs down or the one who steps up. Not because you're fearless, but because you're the author. And authors don't wait for permission. They create meaning out of mess. They turn doubt into dialogue. They move the story forward even when they're uncertain how it ends. Think about it. The most powerful people in the world aren't those who never feel fear. They're the ones who recognize it, name it, and keep writing anyway. They don't let fear write the final chapter. They take back the pen. And that changes everything. So the next time fear starts telling you a story, stop and listen. But don't just listen. Answer back. Write your own version. One where you try. One where you grow. One where you lead, love, speak up, show up, even if your voice shakes. You don't need to be fearless to move forward. You just need to stop letting fear be the author. The power is in your hands. The story hasn't ended yet. Fear may begin the story, but it doesn't get to finish it. You do. You have the pen. Use it. Courage isn't always loud. It doesn't always come with a dramatic gesture or a bold announcement. Sometimes courage is quiet. It's steady. It's the calm voice inside you that says, I'll try again tomorrow. It's the decision to keep showing up, even when no one is watching. True courage doesn't need to prove anything. It already knows its worth. We often mistake bravado for bravery, the loudest voice in the room, the biggest ego, the person who seems fearless. But courage isn't about being the loudest. It's about being the most grounded. Loud bravado is often a mask, a cover for insecurity. Quiet confidence, on the other hand, comes from deep self-trust. It's built on knowing who you are and what you stand for, even if the world doesn't see it yet. You don't have to shout to be strong. Real strength is often soft-spoken. It's found in the moments when you choose to respond instead of react. When you walk away from what doesn't serve you. When you admit you don't have all the answers, but you're willing to learn. That kind of courage doesn't need applause. It doesn't wait for validation. It's rooted in purpose, not performance. Quiet confidence is what carries you when the path is uncertain. It doesn't rush. It doesn't panic. It listens. It observes. It takes thoughtful action. And in a world that's constantly shouting on social media and headlines and comparison, that kind of presence is rare. But it's powerful. Think about the people who've impacted you the most. The mentors, the leaders, the friends who made you feel safe and seen. Chances are they weren't the ones trying to dominate the room. They were the ones who made space for others. The ones who led with humility, who didn't need to be the center of attention to make a difference. That's what real courage looks like. It uplifts, not overshadows. Quiet confidence is also about resilience. It's the kind of courage that doesn't crumble under pressure. Because it's not built on image, it's built on truth. When things fall apart, bravado gets loud, defensive, chaotic. But quiet confidence stays centered. It adapts. It doesn't break because it was never pretending. This doesn't mean courage never speaks up. It absolutely does. But it speaks with intention, not noise. It's the person who says what needs to be said, even if their voice trembles. It's the one who tells the truth, not to be liked, but to be real. It takes far more bravery than any show of force. Sometimes courage is having a difficult conversation. Sometimes it's walking away from something comfortable. Sometimes it's starting over when no one understands your decision. These moments don't always look heroic on the outside, but they are defining on the inside, and it's in these quiet choices that character is built. The world doesn't need more loudness. It needs more grounded, honest, confident people who lead with integrity. People who know who they are and don't need to shout it. People who have nothing to prove but everything to give. People who are brave enough to be vulnerable, to be kind, to be consistent, even when no one's clapping. Courage isn't something you perform. It's something you live. And the most powerful kind is quiet. It's in your tone, in your posture, in your ability to stay rooted when life tries to shake you. That's the courage that endures.